The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Perspectives. My name is David Schoeneman. I'm your host on this program, and I'm the alderman for Ward 3 here in Nashua. On Perspectives, we deal with a number of issues that are of importance to Nashua taxpayers on a local, state, or even a national level. We do this in order to keep you informed on the issues that our society is facing and to enable you to participate in the conversation as opportunities arise. This week, we're going to take another look at the Nashua school system, especially since the budget season for fiscal 2017 is quickly approaching. With me today to talk about schools are Doris Hohensee and Howard Coffman. Doris Hohensee has been very involved in educational issues here in the state. She's testified before House and Senate committees up in Concord on various educational issues, and Howard Coffman has been a substitute teacher here in Nashua and has also dealt with education on a first-hand basis. He knows from experience what the school board is going to have to do in order to raise the educational level here in Nashua. Both of them are newly elected members to the Nashua Board of Education. Welcome, Doris and Howard. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Good to be here.
Well, first off, since we're going to be talking about a lot of issues regarding schools and budgets and performance, because all these things tie together. When we start dealing with the budget, we're going to look at the value that taxpayers are getting. And I want to share with you an email that I received from a constituent, a Ward 3 constituent this week, just a couple days ago. Now, we all live in Ward 3 and we're familiar with the area. I'm not going to mention the constituent's name or the street that this family lives on so that they're not going to be identified. But I just want to share with you this two-line email. The constituent writes, quote, "There are 3 of us on our street who will be selling our homes in the near future. There's a property located at the corner that is up for auction today. Trulia, of course, is the real estate valuation website that a lot of homes you can find home information on. Trulia has this home listed with a low rating because of the nearby junior high school. Why is this, and can anything be done to change it?" End quote. So here's a constituent who's writing about the valuation for a home in her neighborhood when she wants to sell her own home and is worried about the value. Now, I did some research for her. I took the information. I know, of course, that she lives in Ward 3, so the middle school that she's referring to would be Pennachuck Middle School. And school rankings can be determined by looking online. There's a very good website called schooldigger.com. And I would encourage school board members or the public to take a look at it and find out where the schools are ranked. You can look at any school district across the country. Schooldigger.com takes information provided by the state and as to scores, test scores, and ranks schools in the state. So I looked up on schooldigger.com and found out that Pennachuck is ranked number 86 out of 107 middle schools in the entire state. That's the bottom 20%. For comparison's sake, we have 2 other middle schools. We got Fairgrounds, we have Elm Street. Fairgrounds was about the same. That was number 88 out of 107. Also the bottom 20% in the state. Elm Street was a little bit higher. It was 76th out of 107. So that's the bottom 29%. So the middle schools and other schools aren't ranked. Some elementary schools aren't ranked lower than that here in Nashua. This taxpayer's home value, and really all of our home values, are going to be negatively impacted by a report from an organization like School Digger. If someone's looking to move to New Hampshire and they're out in Chicago, they don't know anything about Nashua or Merrimack or Manchester or where they're going to live, they're going to go to this report and find a ranking, and they're not going to want to move here, potentially, if they have school-age children. So she asks, why is this, and can anything be done to change it? It's a big question. But as newly elected members to the school board, what are your initial thoughts? Or as private citizens, what are your thoughts?
It's probably the test scores that they're looking at, the Smarter Balance assessments, which are new. It's an experimental program. We've only been in it 1 year. So if it's an older website, it might go back to the kneecaps, and they might be rating and ranking and sorting our schools based on that one indicator. You can also go to the department website and look at a number of different indicators. My children went through Penachuk for some of their courses. I found the atmosphere to be very safe there and the administration to be very friendly. But my kids are graduated, they're through college, and it was a few years ago. There's been a lot of reforms since now and then. And some of those reforms are troubling and need to be analyzed, not just adopted, without looking at it. What is the ramifications of just taking every reform? And what is the cost to the district? We're implementing reforms that sometimes aren't even mandated, and they have a huge professional development cost, and then a lot of changes in the district terms of software or books and hardware and different things like that. So I'm hoping that the new board will start looking more analytically at things as they come down and try to evaluate what would be good for the district, what is working in the district, what's not working in the district, and that may involve a little bit of change.
So some of the things that are coming down may improve school performance and some may not. Now, it's not the school's position that there's no problem, though.
Well, nobody's going to say, gee, our district is falling apart. They're going to try to put a good face on it. I know that we're changing some of the curriculum. I know that we have some math programs we're looking at for the elementary schools, and some of the data has shown for the first year of piloting that we have gotten good results. I don't know how many more programs there are out there, but they compared 3, and they're looking at some that have given some significant improvement. So maybe some changes like that would help. There's also a lot of change over the grading system, which maybe some of that helps, maybe some of that hurts. The feedback that we're getting from parents and students is not all good. We're not able to get feedback from the teachers who are not able to be candid. So until we can get that information, it's hard to act other than on our own predisposition. So that's what I've been looking to do, is to get a survey out there in a safe environment where the teacher can candidly respond, and then we can have the data to have a conversation. It's hard to have a conversation.
That's right.
When you have limited data.
So grading is certainly a topic we want to talk about. But Howard, from your experience being in the schools, what do you see about school performance? Do these numbers surprise you, or do you hear those numbers and say, well, yeah, that's kind of what I was expecting?
Well, I saw that research when I was running and in conversations with people and had the same concerns. We do pay, as citizens, as taxpayers, a very significant in terms of cost per pupil. We are right up there with most districts, if not, I think it's around 13,000.
Around 13,000 for non-special ed, per non-special ed student per year.
The special ed was part of one of the issues that I've just learned about. We had in our public hearing last night on the budget, we were given some information about a program that's just for high school students. These are for kids that are high risk. They're mandated by the state that we have to provide these students with education until they're 21 years old. Some of these
Special ed students.
they're not special ed. These are problem students.
I see.
And we have an obligation. We had a list of, there's about 20 students in the programs. They don't tell us any names. We don't know anything about the kids. But 4 of those students had 60 or more absences.
Out of 90 days semester.
So, but you have a staffing equivalent is there to support 24 students. Right now we have about 20 in the program, 19 or 20 in the program.
But this is a special facility just for them that they're giving a lot of services to, and if they don't attend, the district is just wasting money.
And over and above that, you have the special ed program, which is also mandated, and that consumes a huge amount of resources. And a lot of that is, you wouldn't think of it as transportation. You've got to move the kids from there to there and back and pick them up and have a big route, make sure you get everybody very efficiently. I was impressed by the presentation we had from the transportation person, totally in command of what he was doing and understood how to, I felt very comfortable with what he shared with us. But the fact is, those are mandates. So that takes away a lot of latitude that the board could actually apply those funds where it wanted to.
Sure.
It can't, because there are mandates, and of course so many mandates are unfunded, and that's a whole nother story throughout the governmental system.
Right now,
Can I just say one
sure,
other
of
thing?
course, yes.
When I substitute taught, when I was a substitute teacher, I chose to work in the middle schools because I found that the high schools were not where I wanted to be. But most of the time, whenever I was given the opportunity, I worked in Pennachuck because it's pretty close to where I live. And I will say that the staff was always very courteous and professional with me. I tended to stick to the 7th and 8th grade, so I was in that wing, those wings, quite a bit, also throughout the whole school. So they came to know me after a while. But I will say that the teachers work diligently with the materials that they have. And I would also say, and I told this to the food service director at one of the meetings we had, I never saw a piece of wilted lettuce in that cafeteria. So kudos to the food service folks over there because I can't even find that in my own house.
Didn't you say that discipline was less of a
Discip-
problem at Pennachuck because
Well-
the way they have their teachers sitting in? I think
Yes,
that was something that they've done right.
yes, yeah, that's a good thing. For me, sorry I touched the mic, for me the behavior is always an issue in the schools that I experienced. As a substitute, everybody, sink the sub is when somebody used to say to me. It's always difficult. They're the target for the day. Believe it or not, folks, I actually enjoyed substitute teaching. It was a lot of fun. But there's always one kid in one class who's determined to take it down, and it's not hard for that to occur. And the kids know the limit, they stop, and then another one, it's like a tag team wrestling match, and the next one kicks in. So I think behavior is an issue. They just came out with a report saying it's not an issue in the middle schools. Substitute teacher would probably have a different experience of that.
Sure. Yeah, I don't question the professionalism and the quality of the teachers or even the quality of the food, anything like that. But an education system is supposed to produce education. And I think the frustration that taxpayers feel, the frustration that this constituent, I think, feels is that here we're living in this city, we're spending this money, and no matter how friendly the environment or how professional it may seem, our results are just not there. Do the results surprise you? The scores?
I didn't think we'd be that low in the state. But I know this test is new. I mean, this test has been in place for 1 year. So it wasn't even validated when they put it in. They put it in, and if they got 95%, they could begin the validation process. And the other thing is, we as a board have never seen this test. We're supposed to be able to see it. Parents are supposed to be able to see the questions and answers, and we're not. So we're basing our real estate on the results of a test that we can't see. That's difficult.
It's true, except that truly, this is how the system works. Truly to value schools or to value properties, we'll look at schools in the area. Let me share a couple other scores with you that may or may not surprise you. I don't know. The National High School North is 57th out of 77 high schools in the state on the scores. And Nashua South is 76th out of 77 high schools in the state.
The other thing is, I don't think they separate the special needs kids from the regular students. I think it's the average of the whole body. So maybe some of these smaller towns don't have as many special needs students, so maybe their averages are slightly higher.
Could be.
That could be a factor.
Could be. It all depends on really
I don't
how
think
the
we
state...
should, pull them out to prove that we're better,
Sure.
but it could very well be.
I can tell you, we both had a shared experience. We were invited down to the high school, the South High School, where the the student senate met, and they wanted to talk with us. And I was completely impressed by those kids. They were bright, they were articulate,
Yep.
they were very well
Very
presented.
articulate.
I think so too. Now, we had a forum down there, a candidate forum for the aldermen during the election season last year. And it was down at South, and I felt the same way. So the score somewhat surprised me. But when I had Sandra Ziem, of course, the president of the school board, on, she says that we do well with our special ed kids. We do well with our AP kids. And it was probably more
Those are the
AP
ones
kids,
that we met, yep.
But it's this group in the middle
Well,
that's lost.
That's what
and
I
that's
said.
probably the group that drives the scores.
And that's what I said to one of the kids there. I said, I'm not worried about you guys. You guys are shining light.
Right.
Just what you'd want your whole student body to be. And I say, and this is in the context of the grading and the X2 system, which is the system that's used to post grades, record grades, distribute grades to kids, to the students, to the parents. The teachers enter them, and they're supposed to be available to everybody. It's flawed in all sorts of ways, and there's been we've been there since the middle of January. Every week, every meeting that we have as a board, which is every 2 weeks, we are discussing X2. Does not go away. And these are the AP students who are struggling with it. And then I said, if you guys are struggling with it, I can't imagine what and some of them have given up, and their parents have given up trying to understand the grading. So, and then I'm worried about the next tier of kids who don't have the patience and maybe some aptitude that allows them to dive into something to more fully understand it. And how frustrated, if the really bright kids are frustrated with it, what is the impact on the next group of students? Well, and that leads to the lower scores. And kids check out. You know, if you're overwhelmed, sometimes you just have to bail out just to catch your breath.
Yeah.
This is a very experimental program. We brought it in the 70s and 80s. It failed. Now we're bringing it back with a new name.
The grading you're talking about.
The grading system used to be called outcome-based education. Now it's called competency-based education or standards-based education. If you go to the elementary school, we have standard-based down there. But the problem is it tries to eliminate the concept of failure. So if you fail, you can remediate. You can try again. You can try again. Or at the end, you have a 5-week recovery period. So a student that works hard and gets his good grade the first time can be outmatched by somebody who, well, I'll study something else and I'll just redo that and I'll get a good score and so you've got this timeliness that this work ethic that they feel challenged because, you know, I'm a responsible kid. I get it right the first time. I put in my work, and these other kids, they can come along and match the grade over time, remediating. So it's a strange sense of competitiveness. And the school says, well, we don't want to rank and sort you. We want you to be cooperative and collaborative. But if you're college and career ready, you put in an application. It's not how many friends you have. It's what are your grades? How do they rank? How do they sort you out?
Sure, and it's very, very competitive. So at some stage, the kids need to learn competitiveness, what it means to be
and then the
competitive and how to
grade
compete.
report from the first semester, as I think I've told you, we have 25% less A's from both high schools and 25% more F's.
So we still have A's and F's in the scale.
Right.
But because of this new grading system, we're seeing a shift. So the A's
Right.
are diminishing in number,
Right.
and the F's on the other end are increasing number. So we're shifting grades down the scale. Now, with the shifting down the scale, are these the kids then that can retry and work their way back up if possible?
See, we've had averages that are pretty consistent over the past 3 years. They gave us a chart, and they were pretty average, and everything doesn't really change from semester to semester. This time, it's radical difference. But there's right before the F's, there's this not competent yet. And they get a 5-week period to try to recover their grades. So they're in their grade. And they did that for the first quarter. They have small quarter grades they call skinny courses. And they had like 85 students in each high school trying to recover. And only 10 out of the 85 in each school managed to recover. So they get not necessarily an A or a B, but they at least get up to a C and they get credit. If they don't, then they fall into the F category.
And what happens to a student who gets an F? Do they repeat the year?
They failed the course, and I don't know exactly how it works. You might go to summer school to recover it. You might have enough credits anyway, so I think there's a certain number to go from sophomore to junior to senior. So however many credits you've earned, do you make the cut? There's a lot of different factors.
And this recovery period is amazing. Again, we spoke to these AP level honors students, and one girl spoke about her brother, who also an AP student, who didn't complete, didn't fulfill a competency, so he had during the recovery period, which is the following semester, the first recovery period is the first 5 weeks of the next semester.
I see.
So not only are you taking your full credit load for that next semester's class, you now have tacked on to that to make up the competencies that you missed. So you can catch credit for it, but you have a 5-week window. So if it's not stressful enough of having 4 new classes, You now have the added burden of, within that 5-week window, making up the missed work, deficient
and the
work from the
teachers.
other semester.
The teachers don't move that class on. They get a new class, and they're still holding on to the recovery students. So they have a bigger burden to create all these. Now, they don't create it, but to help and get involved in this recovery program. And if now they're saying that they didn't know what they were going to do over the summer, how do you recover when all the teachers are on vacation? So they're suggesting at the last meeting that maybe they'll recover in September. So now you have this 2-month gap between when you've last did the work, and now you've got to get back in gear. And what about the seniors? They can't recover in September. They need to recover ASAP to get into their college.
So your preference would be just the way we've always done it, basically? The same way that I would have done it? I mean,
Well,
same,
I think
just
that
a regular scoring system?
I think we need to go back. I think this pilot wasn't fully tested. We're now letting the students suffer under it. I think the teachers, if they're allowed to speak out ever, I think we'll get confirmation of that. I think it failed in the 70s and 80s because it imposes this very structured grading system on teachers, and it doesn't always adapt to their classroom. And teachers are supposed to have the last say on grades. Administrator doesn't come along and pressure you if you were a teacher and say, you're going to give this kid a grade that we like. No, that's the teacher's prerogative. So now they have a prerogative, but you're putting them in a straitjacket. So it's very difficult.
So at this stage, we don't know exactly how the teachers feel about it.
And the data points, and we were trying to get data points, the survey
Just a
that
survey.
Doris mentioned.
No change, just a survey. And
Almost a one-question survey.
How many
And
times was I thwarted? 2 or 3 times?
So far, just 2.
Oh,
We're trying to get a data point before the end of the semester, because this is the first year, so we're encouraged, wait and see how it goes. Well, my concern
They're
is
in
we
pain.
can't treat our students like experimental.
No.
You know, I'm all about innovation, but I'm not about experimentation. And these programs have been brought in quickly. Things that were piloted, like this X2 enhancement for the new grade book. If there was a pilot, it didn't work to flesh out the problems that everybody's encountering. Performance problems, grading problems. The student sees one set of data, the teachers see another.
And they
all sorts of
say
things.
our board is dysfunctional. I've heard that word used because there's a lot of difference among the board, and we have to be very polite with each other. Otherwise, it comes across as a little bit less than, that we're getting along. And I think the same thing is going on in the union, because when I talk to different people, they're telling me how to structure the question, how to make sure it's anonymous, how to make sure that their principals don't find out what the teachers are saying. And yet every time this survey fails, I get a union rep that comes up for public comment. Oh, I'm so glad that failed. It's like, why don't you want the feedback? But then if it's something they want, they'd say, I'll go out and poll them overnight. So it's like, I'm not getting the support from the union to say that they care about the teachers as much as I do.
Well, I'm not 100% sure that the Board of Aldermen or the national taxpayers get the support of the unions either. I'm not really sure that we're all pulling on the same oar.
One thing I think it's fair to say that we are trying to do, Kim Kleiner, whom you know very well, as I've come to meet her through the board, and now she works in the mayor's office. She had 2 things, though, which I'm going to carry her banner, transparency and accountability. So for those of you who watch us at home, please watch us at home. If you don't watch us at home, start watching us. The questions we ask are designed to reveal the background information, to put it in front of us so we can look at all aspects of the situation to make the best decision. That's what we're chartered to do as public officials. I take that very seriously.
Good.
So I may have predispositions, but the fact is I want to hear from everybody. One of the unique things about having a board of 9 members, you're oversaturated, I think, but everybody has a different level of expertise in something else. And they bring that view. Dr. Moritaki, technology, can't do better. Doris, as far as someone who understands the state laws around education and the trends and the competencies and Common Core and all that stuff, I consider her a subject matter expert. I'm a program manager kind of guy, policy-wise. I'll ask more questions. People want me to shut up. But generally speaking, the questions are pretty good and revealing. And
That's a lot of research. He's very good.
And we want to put the information out there. My hope is that the board, the full board, would really embrace that. Let's put everything on the table. Let's make the best decision based upon all of the information we can gather. Sometimes that happens. In the few short weeks that we've been there, things don't always happen that way. We had a proposal the other night, which was to, well, the principal contract has been approved, and we were trying to explore some alternatives around that. And our ability to do that was not, we didn't have it formally, let's just say that. So where you put issues out there, you don't always get them to the next level of discussion. And that's the whole board. You have to understand we have a whole committee structure. The board generally responds to something that once it's gone through a committee, done its research and comes back. But there are procedural ways that things kind of avoid the committee process. So things can go directly to the board, or they can go to a committee through the board. And being newbies, not knowing the parliamentary procedure as well as we'd like, sometimes we get outflanked on procedural things, so the discussions we want to have don't occur. But we're learning.
Like the superintendent, assistant superintendent's idea. We wanted to send that to committee to discuss the statutory requirements of the superintendent and how he can delegate them to the two retiring or leaving assistant superintendents to figure out who's doing what duty and how it all fits in the district and reevaluate it. We have 2 empty spots. The whole direction of our district is based on these top high-level people. So let's make sure that everything's covered. Let's just re-examine it before we race out there to just fill the spots.
Well, it's hard to get some of these things done sometimes because as much as you want to have transparency and accountability and all those kinds of things and get facts on the table and look at them objectively, politics enters in. And I like the stance that you take. You take your job very seriously because I think you're both representing the people that elected you. That's how I view the job as Ward 3 Alderman. And it's not so much what I am or think, it's about what the folks at home think. And so it's important to get all the data out so that we can discuss it and so that folks at home can hear about it.
Do you know when this is going to Do you know when this is going to broadcast?
It's going to come out next week.
Okay, so if in time, please, we have board meetings on every other Monday. Budget meetings are every Wednesday, at least through the end of March. We're going to have 2 public sessions on the budget. So I just want to, sorry to interrupt you there.
That's perfectly fine.
But
it's
we
important
want
for
people to know, to be participatory, to stand up and express your views. We sincerely want to receive public feedback, and we do consider it. It may not look that way sometimes, but it does digest and it does come forward when it can.
Good. We're nearly out of time, and we touched on budget there for just a moment, and budget is coming up. Now, I understand the 2 of you are involved in a negotiating team on the board. Can you tell us about that briefly?
The teachers union. There's 3 members and an alternate, and we're 2 of the members, and we've been looking over the contract, and I think at the end of the month, on the 30th, we'll start in the negotiation process. And we've learned a lot already before we've even gotten in there. We set ground rules, and then we put out terms, and we accept terms, and we negotiate between the 2, see if we can bridge the differences.
And this budget process is well-timed because there's specific things in the budget that relate back to specific things in the contract. So now we know how much and where it is and kind of its history, you know, because you can go back years looking at budgetary allowances for particular items. So we think we'll be prepared. I think we're prepared now, actually.
Well, it sounds like you are. I think you're both very well prepared. And it's going to be a tough season. I'm sure it's going to be a tough negotiation, too, because teachers, of course, make up about 40% of the overall school budget, again, from what I could see in the fiscal 2016 budget book. Teacher salaries are about 40%. That's a huge chunk. And so where the teacher salaries go is really where the district goes in terms of how it fits into the overall budget for the city. And schools collectively represent half of the city budget. So it's a very big number, and the 2 of you have a very big responsibility. We'll see how it goes.
And we do take it seriously. I want people to understand that.
Yes.
I hope we've been able to convey that today. We are trying to do our due diligence. And it is, you know, like I said to you earlier, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And when you enter the school board, every day presents itself with another issue. So you find yourself one day you're dealing with personnel matters, or we had buildings that pipes froze
Pipe,
and all of
that
a
was
sudden
pretty sad.
mechanical things,
Heating systems that
heating
went
systems
down.
that need to be replaced.
All these things are part of that big elephant. I think the
Yeah.
elephant really comes down to what this constituent wrote about. She's concerned not just about her property value, but about the fact that for whatever reason, our schools are ranked the way they are. And that's a big problem. And the budget is very high. If value to a taxpayer is measured by what we get for what we pay, then we're paying a lot of money. If our scores are low, it gives the impression that the value to the taxpayer is low.
That's why the key component is those professional teachers. If they feel that they can't give us negative as well as positive feedback, then we can't correct the problems. We're hearing from the people that like what we're doing. Those people are free to come up because they're not criticizing the administration, but we need the negative feedback too, because we can't pinpoint the problems if we don't get both halves.
Well, that goes to the need for good information. From
Data,
citizens.
Data.
Well, we're out of time. I want to thank you very much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank the folks at home, too, for tuning in. You've been watching Perspectives. I'm David Schoeneman. I'm your host in this program with Doris Hohensee and Howard Coffman on the school board here in Nashua. If you have any questions or comments, please reach us at perspectivesnh@gmail.com. Again, thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.